For all we know, we may never meet again. Before you go.
We're up here because of what I heard said from elected leaders after the Virginia Tech shooting, after the shooting in Tucson, after the shootings that happen every single day, that now is not the time to talk about gun violence. Now is not the time, it's not appropriate to talk about solutions. So my question to Speaker John Boehner, my question to Majority Leader Eric Cantor, my question to every single member who works up here is that if today, the 5th anniversary of the worst shooting in our country's history, is not the time, if tomorrow, when 32 more Americans are going to be killed from gunfire, is not the time, which day is the time? Which day would it be appropriate for you to talk about this issue and talk about what we can do? It is beyond time for us.
My daughter, Brichelle Jones, was one of the 3 young people murdered March 30, 2010 on South Capitol Street. There was 9 people shot with multiple weapons. Guns in the wrong hands is not a pretty sight. My daughter was shot in the head with an AK-47. It blew wide open. And it's hard to even talk now. My father died due to bladder cancer, but he just had no fight after Brichelle was killed. Couldn't get out of bed for 6 months. When he finally got up, he was diagnosed with cancer, and he just didn't have the will to live any longer. And elected officials, politicians, activists, all of us as a human society, we need to be a more conscious society.
I'm here in memory of my brother, who was 18, I was 15 when he was murdered. No family should experience this. He's 32, none of us should be here today. This is unacceptable.
My name is Tom Mauser. I'm the father of Daniel Mauser, who was killed at Columbine High School on April 20th, 1999. 2 weeks before that, he asked me at the dinner table, innocently, "Dad, did you know there were loopholes in the Brady bill?" Then he was shot with a gun that was purchased at a gun show through one of those loopholes. That motivated me into action. I led the fight in Colorado to close that gun show loophole. When the legislature failed to close it, we took it to a vote of the people. We closed it with a vote of 70% to 30%. During those days when I was advocating as today, were these shoes. These are the shoes my son wore. He was wearing on April 20th, 1999. I do it to honor him, just as these folks here are doing what they're doing to honor their children.
There was an act that actually did not allow assault rifles to be purchased by the public. It was only good for 10 years. We want that reenacted. The general public does not need assault rifles. Keep them in the hands of those that do. Military and law enforcement. Keep our streets safe. We lost a good one that day. The thin blue line got one person thinner. May 28, 2011. I will be back up here in D.C. next month for National Police Week. And I challenge those here in Capitol Hill to face me face to face and tell me there was nothing you could have done to have stopped my husband's death.
My name is Mary Mace, and my daughter Ryan was the youngest of the 5 students slain in the rampage shooting at Northern Illinois University on Valentine's Day of 2008. Ryan was only 19 when taken from my husband and me. She was our only child and the light of our lives. As more information became available about the shooter, I had problems understanding how someone with such an extensively documented history of mental illness was able to purchase firearms legally.
My life was forever changed on May 10th of 2007. You see, my son and only child, Blair Hope, was murdered when he boarded a bus after leaving Percy L. Julian High School on Chicago's South Side. The bus was loaded to capacity with students and other riders. A teenager boarded the bus and started shooting. He was trying to shoot an opposing gang member, but he shot 5 innocent teenagers. My son was fatally wounded. The surviving teenagers are left with horrifying memories of being shot, as well as lifelong physical and emotional issues. I am left without my beloved son. How could a teenager get his hands on such a dangerous weapon? There has to be a way to keep this from happening to other families. There are countless victims who have suffered the same fate because no one has figured out how to stop illegal guns in our communities. If only there were laws that were in order, my son would be getting ready to graduate from college now, but I guess I will never get to see that. I would just hope that the legislators would look at all of us here today and understand this can be you.
July 2nd, 1984. I helplessly watched at the age of 10 as my mother, Jacqueline Keller, and my 12-year-old brother, Anthony Cephas, were shot point blank in their faces right in front of me. He then came to me and he put the gun to my head and he had me beg for my life. But I've come from that room at 10 years old to this hill to let Congress know that guns in the hands of people like Marshall Grant Williams, guns in the hands of people like George Zimmerman, do not belong.
5 years ago, my mother and sister went to buy my siblings and myself Valentine's cards at a mall in Salt Lake City, Utah. They were gunned down by a severely mentally ill 18-year-old who should not have had the gun that he purchased. My sweet baby sister Kirsten was killed, and my mother will forever suffer from the multiple gunshot wounds she inflicted. We live this nightmare every day. We live with the pain and loss of our children, siblings, close friends, and family members. We live with the fear that unless our laws change, dangerous people will be able to get a hold of illegal firearms and put other innocent people through this intolerable pain of forever wondering who our lost loved ones would be today. For the last 5 years, I have constantly wondered who my sister Kirsten would be today. I wonder what she would look like, what she'd be doing, and what of her many ambitious goals she would have been able to achieve had her life not ended at 15 at the hands of someone who should never have been able to obtain the weapon that ended her life. Kirsten has missed so much that she should have been here for. Most recently, her high school graduation and my wedding. I watch as my mother deteriorates before my eyes, knowing there's nothing I can do for her. She will never get better. She will never heal. I live in fear for her and her future, and for the future of my kids that I want to someday have. It is far too easy for these dangerous firearms to get into the hands of the wrong people, and gun dealers are not being held accountable. Congress is not being held accountable for these weapons that are getting sold. We all stand before you today, asking you to remember what we can never forget, to say enough is enough, and to demand a change so this does not continue to happen.